Hightower. Here. Eric Dion. Here. Trevor Gravel. Here. Brad Withrow. Here. Sally Hightower.
Here.
No, she did last one. She called her first.
Say the best one.
Yeah. I didn't say that. Linda probably will have to amend that. She'll probably come in. Okay.
Are we ready?
We have 6 things on the agenda this evening. First one is budget update out of Lansing.
Well, the good news is that they haven't finalized, meaning our legislators have not finalized the school aid appropriations for 13-14. They're going through the process right now. The governor, as you know, put his budget out there, and the Senate last week put their budget out there, which means, I'm sorry, the House put their budget out there, which means we're waiting now on the Senate to get theirs out and available. So once that happens, the three will have to come to some sort of agreement on what the final budget will look like. There were some significant differences between the governor's proposed budget and ultimately what came out of the House. So there's 40 pages of differences. It's really, at this point, until we know a little bit more about what's going to happen and how it's going to come together, it's probably not worth the time to go through all the 40 different changes, because they may not be 40 pages of changes because they may not become a reality. But what is going to be a reality is that in either case, or whatever blend of the 2 or 3 budgets end up being our reality, we're certain to not have any more money to operate with than we do this year. Best case scenario, in my opinion, based on what I'm looking at right now, best case scenario is we end up the same next year as we are this year as far as revenue goes. That's the best case scenario.
In other words, going backwards.
Which in other words goes backwards because the price of
Everything
everything
else
goes up. You know, how that's all going to come together yet, I'm not exactly certain. It's still a little early to tell, but I wouldn't expect a windfall of revenue certainly coming out of Lansing this year.
Anything that's a true shock, or
Oh, no.
that's on the budgets or anything?
No, there's nothing big that's coming. You know, there's a reduction in best practices money that's reflected in both. And I think that once that actually happens, and you'll see a slight increase in foundation allowance, but the reduction in best practices will make up for the increase in foundation allowance. At the end of the day, those two zero out, or a little bit, maybe a little bit to the good, a couple bucks per student to the good. But as far as any new revenue streams coming in and making the issues that we all have had to deal with go away, I don't expect that to happen. A flat budget, again, if the best case scenario is a flat budget, it's still a decrease because the cost of doing business goes up. You know, right now we're running about 81% of our budget is based on staff costs, people. And those costs go up every year despite all of our efforts to keep them down. Whether you're dealing with the cost of MIPSers, whether you're dealing with the cost of work comp insurance, we can do all the right things at the bargaining table to control our costs as far as our labor unions go. But at the end of the day, the uncontrollable labor costs, like retirement, like healthcare, like work comp insurance, those types of things continue, those increases march on. So even the best case scenario, flat budget is still going to be a problem for us.
Last year when we negotiated the contract, we thought we had it nailed, and then lawsuits came up, and that just threw everything to the desk.
Yeah, you know, you don't know how those things are going to come out. At the end of the day, you just have to watch and see. But the news is that we've got 2 of the 3 pieces in place, waiting on piece number 3. Once piece number 3 is in place, we'll have a much better look at what next year could look like. Keep in mind, we'll still have to do enrollment projections, and right now, if I had to guess, what would be only a guess because I haven't finished analyzing enrollment trends from the past 2 years to see how they may impact next year. Enrollment is probably going to be down another 40 to 60 students. So that's right now what I'm tossing around as far as putting the budget together. So we'll have to wait and see. But it's not doom and gloom, but it certainly isn't. It isn't something to have a celebration either. So keep in mind also, though, that we are financially we are in fine shape. I mean, as a district, we're in good shape. We're not on. We don't have to panic. It's not time to run up the red balloon or get on the roof and jump. We don't have to do any of that. Financially, we can weather. We can continue to weather the storm. We continue to manage the dollars that we have the way we've managed them in the last 6 or 7 years. We will. We won't have a catastrophe. It will be difficult, but it won't be.
Given that nothing terrible is wrong, I guess.
Yeah, the roof doesn't fall in.
Yeah.
All right, bus prices, we're looking at what it's gonna cost to purchase buses, there are two of them in the budget right now, and I've had Bernie going out, and the last few years, we haven't bought new buses. The reason we haven't is because we can get such good deals on lightly used buses. What happens is, school districts downstate in the Detroit area, buy school buses or lease school buses, and the amount that they drive them is very small, because their school systems, their school buildings are typically neighborhood schools, which means most of the kids walk. So they only need buses for running extra trips, like to a field trip or to an athletic event or something like that. Daily bus runs like we would run here, they don't have. So they buy these buses, they use them for a year, they trade them in, or they turn them back in and release another bus, and these buses come out available to the used market with 15 to 30,000 miles, all on paved roads, and all just running trips on the highway. The field trips or athletic events, so they're practically brand new. And we're able to get them at a price that sometimes saves us $15,000
So,
per bus.
what are we talking more possibly like the
Well, a brand new one can run you upwards of $80,000. And you can get, depending on the number of miles and depending on the condition you use, there's a multitude of factors. The ones we typically look at are between $70,000 and $75,000. $5,000 to $10,000 difference is an easy savings to get, and they're practically new. It's a better use of money, I think. I look at it like my household budget, right? And if I go out and buy a car, which I just did, and which I don't like to do. Sorry, Kirk, but I'm not a car guy. I don't enjoy it.
Like you haven't used cars.
Well, that's what we did. Our household budget is like everybody else's budget. We have to live within our means. And would I like to go out and buy a brand new Yukon XL? You know, sure, I'd love to be driving one, or a Cadillac Escalade. Yeah, it'd be great. The reality is my budget isn't going to support that. No different than the school's budget is not going to support a $90,000 brand new school bus. But that doesn't mean we can't have a nice bus. It doesn't mean I can't have a nice car in my house. My wife and I just went out and bought a 2010 Chrysler minivan, and we saved a bunch of money over what a new one would cost. And yes, it's used, but it's still very nice. It only has 17,000 miles on it, so it's relatively new, and hopefully it serves us well. I think we can do the same thing with the school buses. They'll serve our kids in the district well, and we won't have to pay the big upfront cost of buying something new.
Are there some options there? Has Bernie found some?
Oh, yeah, there are all kinds. Yes, we bought them in the past, and we have an inside line on them from the folks that sell them, because we have kind of purchased that. We bought 4 of them that way recently. So we're looking at it.
diesel.
No.
When are we looking at getting?
Well, what I usually do is I wait till the budget runs to the end of the year, and then Julie will tell me how we did this year. She'll say, this is where the budget's gonna end up, and it's always a guess, because remember, we don't know how it ends up officially until we get audited, but we're usually pretty close, a few bucks where we think we are. So we'll wait until the budget runs through, so there's no catastrophes or no major issues that come up this year that will require those funds to be allocated someplace else. Once I'm comfortable that we won't need them anywhere else, then I'll come back to you folks and say, okay, here's where the budget is projected, based on my best guess to end up. I'd like to move forward with the purchase of these 2 buses if possible, and you guys will take action to actually make that happen.
So are we looking at October?
No. We'll probably be looking at, May sometime, yeah, before the end of the fiscal year, so that they come out of this fiscal year's budget, but not past the beginning of the next fiscal year, because then you have to take the money out of your fund balance to buy them, which means you put money in your bank account, and then wait till later, and then take the money out to buy the bus. But it does show up, when you do that, it does show up as a withdrawal from the fund balance, and I would rather purchase them out of this fiscal year, because it's a more accurate representation of when you actually start the money that you got.
And we budgeted in this lesson, right?
Right now, there's enough money budgeted for 2 of them, yeah. So we'll see how we end up, and then I'll come back to you folks with the recommendation of some information.
Now, is that replacing 2, or are we short 2 buses now, or is that taking 2 of our older buses and scrapping them out?
Good question. Two of them will be taken off the road. Yep. We've got some that are relics.
So it will alleviate some of the costs when we scrap them, basically.
Yeah, we'll put them out. We'll take a look at what the used bus market is getting for a used bus, and then we'll also take a look at what scrap prices are, and we know what a bus weighs. So we'll be able to tell how you get more money. Can you get more money selling it on the open market? Maybe you can, or you get more money if you scrap it. And recently, we've been getting more money for them in scrap than we've been able to sell them on the market, because we've run them to the point where they really aren't worth a whole lot. People that buy them, because remember, these aren't diesel buses that we're getting rid of, these are propane powered buses, well, gasoline conversion, gasoline buses converted to propane. And they're not very highly sought after by anybody other than the race crowd that buys them, turning carbon buses for the racetrack, and they don't want to pay a whole bunch of money for them. So we'll look at that, we'll see which way we can get the most money, and whichever way we can get the most money, that's where we go.
These are the last two propane.
No, no, there's still some out there. We're a little over half the fleet diesel right now.
Any other questions on the buses? Food service update on Saturday.
An interesting conundrum. 3 years ago, we took a look at food service in whole. We decided we would do something to address the costs of providing food services to the district, and we also needed to address quality issues. And I'm trying to think of who was on the board at the time. I think Lisa had just come on and Kelly was on. And you had just gotten off when that happened, right? So by way of recapping, what we did is we took a look at both the cost of providing the service and the quality of the service provided. And we approached it through an investigative model where we actually went out to other districts who were providing food service to their districts at a very competitive rate and at a very high quality level. And we visited those places, and by we had a committee of food service people from here, me, some teachers, a couple support people. We went out and board member, and we went out and checked these places out. And we also talked on the phone to many others, and we enlisted the help of a consultant from Board and Food Service to help us take a look at how those places are made together in providing the service. And what we discovered is that we could provide a very high level, a much improved level of service using the people that we have, or we could provide a very high level of service to our kids by outsourcing the food service to a company like Charcoals and our others. I use them because they're the ones that are in our area. So the board weighed their options, and they decided that we wanted to reorganize our food service department and keep it in-house because we felt that we could basically make more money keeping it in-house and then use those dollars in food service, because remember, food services budget exists as a separate entity from the general fund, and never shall the two cross, okay? It's just the way that you have to set them up according to Michigan's law. But you can take food service dollars, and you can use those dollars to offset some general fund costs, so long as those costs are directly related to the providing of a food service or nutritional program. For example, trash pickup. You can bill a portion of your trash pickup at your school to the food services department, because a lot of the trash is food and trays and garbage and that kind of stuff as a direct result of feeding the kids. Same type of thing for lights, same type of thing for custodial, same type of thing for natural gas. So long as it's directly related, you can show that, you can bill it. So the idea being to operate your food service department at such a high level that those funds become available to offset the costs in the general fund, and everybody comes out the winner. And we decided, the board at that time decided that that's the direction we're going to go, try to keep it in-house. So we've been doing that for the last 3 years. From a quality standpoint, we've been doing much, much better than we initially did. The quality of the food is way beyond where it was when we undertook that investigation 3 years ago. From a dollars and cents point of view, same thing. It's been doing very, very well. The problem is, and the conundrum that I've got to talk to you about tonight is, they're up against a wall with the number of hours that they're working and getting the job done. Our food service folks were all reduced from full-time, I shouldn't say all. We had I believe it was five food service cooks working full-time. And all of those hours were reduced to part-time, 3.75 hours a day as opposed to 5 hours a day. And the reason for the reduction was to get the costs below what they were so that we could have the revenue generated by food service equal to that could be generated by a private company. Follow me? In doing all that, we've been pushing for the last 3 years, and we have discovered that those cooks working 3.75 hours per day cannot get the job done in that number of hours, which means we would have to increase their hours to get the job done. In increasing their hours, they then become eligible for full-time benefits, which includes all of the host of benefits that come along with being full-time, healthcare being the largest of them. if that happens, we couldn't afford to run the food services department in-house anymore. It would become so expensive because of the cost of healthcare and the other benefits that go along with being full-time, that they would price themselves out of business. They could no longer compete with what we might be able to do, and most assuredly would be able to do, should that service be outsourced. So it's a big problem.
Can you just hire more part-time people?
That would be my question too.
Yeah.
You can hire more part-time people, but you run out of people to hire. We just can't, at 2 or 3 hours a day, finding a labor pool that's willing to do that has proved to be very difficult, if not impossible. It's been really hard. So, I've been working with the union, the support staff union. It was actually an idea of theirs. It was not brought to the table by me, but through the conversations I had with them, they have talked very willingly and very openly about the potential of a letter of agreement that would allow those lead cooks to work the full-time hours, but be exempt from the contract, which would require us to give them full-time benefits. So they feel strongly about what they're doing in the kitchen, strongly enough that they would be willing to have an addendum or letter of agreement to the contract that would allow those folks to work full-time and not have the associated labor costs that go along with being full-time, other than the hourly wage. Doing that might work, and I say might because I have to sit down and figure it all out, and I'm in the middle of doing that right now. So I'm in the process of figuring out how that would all come together and if the labor costs would be low enough to make it a worthwhile endeavor.
How many more hours are you talking per person to cover that? I mean, do they need 2 more hours, 1
Probably an
hour?
hour and 15 minutes apiece to 2 hours apiece. Would definitely take them 5 hours or more, which would, a day, which would ultimately then make them into full-time hours. There's lots of pitfalls to doing something like that, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. Well, not really, we pay that anyway out of our employees, whether they're full or part-time. Yeah, they're talking about it. Yep, they're talking about it, and I don't know, I can't speak for them, so I don't know if they would all jump on board and say it's a great idea. Remember, it was born by them, so it's not something that's coming from the board, certainly, or from me. But it's worthwhile exploring it, because I think it has some merit. You know, they're recognizing the need to keep those jobs in-house. But they're recognizing that in doing that and keeping them in-house, the labor costs become prohibitive to actually doing it. So they're actively searching for solutions amongst themselves, which is exactly what we want people to do. Rather than us have to from above, say, here's the solution, take it or leave it, if they're actually addressing the issue themselves and looking for solutions that benefit them and the district, I mean, how much better could it be? So we'll let them continue, and I'll continue to work with them and see where it ends up. But there's tons of pitfalls involved, as I mentioned earlier, and one of the largest of them is the healthcare liability under the Affordable Care Act. Once the Affordable Care Act goes into effect January of next year, how are we going to deal with that? We may have a labor agreement that says you don't have to give these people full-time benefits, but we're going to have federal legislation in place that says you will give them full-time benefits. And how will we deal with that, or can we deal with that? So I'm working with all of the experts, including Billy Longhorn, the attorneys at True, to try to figure out, is it viable to do this? I mean, is there a way that we can keep this in-house, keep these people employed, but do it at a wage and benefit scale that makes it realistic for us to do it in-house? And I don't know that.
Doesn't the Affordable Health Care Act say they'll have to do over 32 hours a week considered full-time?
30.
27.
Yeah. But again,
27.
no
If
one.
they're only working 5 hours a day, that's 25 hours a week.
No, they couldn't get 25 hours a day. They'd have to be 5.25 or 5.20.
But if you figure an extra person might be able to get that at 5 hours, because
Maybe.
now it's not 2 hours.
If the scheduling allows it, and
Right.
that's what we're working on right now. So, we'll just have to wait and see how it's all gonna come together, but.
So we have to address the insurance issue, whether we
Whether
want
do it or
these
not.
people's hours or not.
Well, eventually we will, as we work to comply with the Affordable Care Act, we're going to have to address that issue with all of our, part-time and full-time employees, depending on how many hours they work, and that's all coming down the road, and we don't have enough time tonight to sort through all that. But we're working on it. But I wanted to put it out there to you, because as we're working on it, if we come up with some way to make this happen, where everybody's comfortable that it will work, and that it will still provide the level of service that we need to the kids and their meals, and take care of the wage issue that we have, wage and benefit issue that we have here, if there's a win-win in this thing for everybody, that's what we're shooting for. And I just wanted you to know that it's out there, we're gonna keep working on it, and with a little bit of luck, it comes together. Or if we just find out that it's not feasible, at least we tried.
And they haven't addressed their union with this. This is just their idea, this isn't,
They're just tossing it around right now. It's nothing official, it hasn't come out, they haven't voted or anything.
but they
like
haven't
that.
gone to their union and even talked about it, or have they?
Officially, I don't know if they've had a meeting and done that or not. I would guess probably not in a full-blown meeting, but it is being talked about in their leadership circles. So that's kind of what's going on. Again, they've got a lot of work to do on their end to see if it's something that can come together. We've got a lot of work to do on our end to see if it's something that can come together. We just have to keep working and see if it can be something that turns into a good deal.
Is there a way that we could possibly even run, even an ad or something, in, like you said, the Glavine County Record? I mean, I know, like you said, it's hard to find people who work those 3 some hours a day.
All we have,
But I mean, with unemployment the way it is, I can't see how people could pass up some money.
we run them. We run them, and we get them, and we turn them over. You know, it just becomes very counterproductive, in and out, in and out, in and out. It doesn't work. It's not a model that's sustainable. You have to have people that you can come in, you can train in the system, and you can count on to be there regularly. And it's at 3 hours a day, or 2.75 hours a day, it's just not doing it. And I can certainly see why. I can certainly see why. Some of the ladies have been doing it, and have been doing a fantastic job, but we also have the issue of others who come in, they're here a short period of time, and they're out and looking for somebody else to do it. And that hurts us. That hurts quality in the kitchen. You know, that hurts morale with the staff because they're constantly turning people in and out. It hasn't been a model that has worked. So more to come on that, but I wanted you to know that it's out there, it's being tossed around. If you hear anything about it, you'll know the background.
Sale of the old steam kettle.
Back, same thing with the food service department again. Back when we redid the kitchens, we took out some of the outdated equipment that was either broken, that was either broken or outdated and no longer necessary to do what we were doing. And one of the items we took out was an old steam kettle. We put all those things out in the Glavine County Record for bid. Our board policy requires that we do that when we dispose of property. And we didn't get any bids on the old steam kettle. So it's out there again. You'll see it pop up in the paper again for sealed bids. And when it does, that's your steam kettle. We're trying to dump the thing. And if we get a few bucks for it,
What about
hooray.
eBay? I mean, is that something that you put on eBay?
We did that once before with a bunch of stuff, and
I mean, you don't probably get as much, but.
we actually didn't get anybody to bid on it.
No.
So we can try it again, but the Glavine County Record is probably our best avenue to go right now, because it's something someone local is gonna probably have to buy. We could try Craigslist, because that deals with more local audience, might be worthwhile.
How heavy is it, scrap it?
Is it stainless steel?
Yeah. Yeah, how heavy is it?
Yeah, and what's the price of stainless steel?
It's probably worth more trying to sell it than it would be if we scrapped it right now.
Will it
But
sit on
where's it
top of the
sitting?
stove?
No, it won't sell. It's huge.
Well, where's it been for the last 2 years? that
In a
we've
pole
used it?
barn under a tarp.
So in a pole barn under a tarp is making us more money than just scrapping it and getting what we can out of it?
Well, you gotta remember, if we scrap it, you know, if we just scrap it and we could have sold it for $200 or $300, I'd rather have the $200 or $300 in money to buy some books or something than I would just $60 in scrap now. So I'd rather, you know, we've got a big pole barn, we got all kinds of stuff stored in there, you know, we just wait for the best opportunity to try to make a few bucks on it.
Does it whistle?
No,
Kelly wants it, that's it, just, let's give it to her.
No, I'm telling you.
you couldn't fit it through the door of a house.
It's what,
The thing's
100
huge.
and some gallons?
Yeah, it's 100 gallons or more. It's got it's natural gas fired, it has like a 2-inch gas line. It runs
She wants to use it for a hot tub.
There you go.
We've had some recent interest in it, so.
You know, take it down to the antique shop.
I don't know what
It's
that.
not that old.
But we've had some recent interest, and people have been poking around asking about it, and now's the best time to maybe strike while the kettle is hot, right?
Okay, any more questions on that? All right, the FOIA appeal is number 5.
All right, FOIA appeal is in process right now, and I hope to have everything all finalized with it. The attorneys are putting the finishing touches on it. Hopefully it's ready to go out of my office tomorrow. It would be my anticipation that it'll all be ready for tomorrow. So I just want to know that we are on top of it and just give it all together. And once the attorneys have done the final tweaking, it'll be ready to go.
We'll hear all about it 2 weeks
Yeah, probably.
And the last thing is the title application.
Title applications, these are continuing to get worse and worse. We had, several years ago, I'll go back just 1 year, maybe easier. 1 year ago, we entered into a consortium pilot program that allowed us to take all of our categorical title money from Title I and Title II being the two biggest sources of revenue, and put those dollars all into one pot. And then take those dollars and use them for the allowable expenditures without having the mountains of paperwork that the federal government has to go along with it. It was to cut back on the amount of work we needed to do to actually spend those dollars in programs supporting kids and learning. It's not working out. The amount of paperwork isn't changing. It's getting more and more difficult to monitor. In fact, we have Julie right now is working on a Title I consolidated application that has already been approved 3 months ago. We've been spending the money based on our approved application, and now our application has now been disapproved because they found something they weren't quite sure of in that application. They'd like to take another look. Well, the money, as the number of Title I and Title II dollars continues to diminish, 10% every year for the last couple of years, the paperwork keeps getting more and more and more cumbersome, and the army of state and federal people that are running around trying to tell you how to spend this money are literally tripping over one another with the various ideas they have on what's allowable and what's not. It's becoming very, very difficult to spend those dollars efficiently with the kids. We've been working with Joel Johnson on it, trying to get some relief out of Lansing and trying to deal with these dollars in a more efficient manner. And we'll see where it all ends up. But if you see some swings in Title I expenditures as we move through the budget, you'll know why those swings are there. The budget, the consolidated application gets approved, and the dollars start to be spent, and then somebody else up the line decides to not approve what somebody below have already approved, and then the dollars can't be spent, so you have to change it, and then if you change it, and the dollars then come back into the budget, who knows how this is all gonna work out. And you will see some swings in these Title I, Title II dollars, and I don't want you to be alarmed when you do.
This is kind of the adult ed budget, and that was approved, and then also wasn't approved.
Yeah, it's the same type of deal.
Yeah.
It's just frustrating because
It sounds like the exact.
How badly do we need these title funds?
badly.
It's probably majority of the money, isn't it?
Which is why we continue to fill out mountains of paperwork and jump through hoops like the dog after one.
Yeah, it's become extremely difficult, it's become extremely frustrating rather, but we gotta have the dollars, and we have to spend it appropriately, that's the big thing. The problem is, it's getting harder and harder to find out what appropriate is. What can you and can you not spend it on is getting more and more difficult to figure out. There are often times when Julie will call down to Lansing and try to get somebody to tell her if you can or can't with some of this money, and it's next to impossible to get a straight answer. It's getting exceedingly difficult to spend these dollars the way that the federal and state government want them to be spent. And we're gonna just have to watch it, and watch it very closely. What they'll tell you if you call them, and we have, what they'll tell you is, we're sorry, but these rules are changing so rapidly, we can't keep up down here either. So as the rules continue to change, and as the rules continue to evolve, it impacts how you're spending money, and it can even impact money that you've already spent. So just keep an eye on it, when you see those changes in the budget, you'll know where they came from.
So it's a story of the left hand not knowing what the right hand's doing.
I think they know, I just think that the rules on how these dollars can be spent are changing and evolving so fast, nobody's entirely sure.
Well, so I mean, someone makes up a rule and says this is how this money's gonna be spent, and somebody over here says, well, this is how this money's supposed to be spent, it's two different ideas.
Or two different interpretations of the same rule.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it
if
happens.
you've already spent the money and then person number two says, no, that's a bite in the butt for us.
Well, yeah, so it causes problems because then you have an unallowable expenditure, and then you have to, those dollars have to go back into the fund as opposed to where you spent them. It can be a pain in the budget because you've been approved to spend it a certain way, and then later on, after you've already spent it, it gets disapproved, you gotta give it back. And we always are able to do that, it's nothing that
Lucky for a
breaks the
fund
bank.
balance.
But it's frustrating, and I wanted you to know that because as we continue to work on it, and if you see some of those changes in Title I or Title II budget, I want you to know why those changes are there. There you go, anything from you guys?
Yeah, anything more? Well, here's a note. Being that I'm going on vacation on Thursday, all right, I will have my cell phone with me. Lisa will do the
I got it. You can get it from
Rick's
me.
got it. But, if you need to call me, I'll have my cell phone and have my charger. Rick's gonna be in DC
Yep,
during the break,
just for a couple of days.
so, but hopefully nothing earth-shaking gonna happen.
Take
Have a
your
good
plans
trip.
away.
Enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'll be back on April the 15th.
Bring me a
Big
t-shirt.
house on Main.
No.
Hey, Rick,
No.
if you need a protest sign and a t-shirt, I've got them.
All right. You hook me
For the
up?
whole family.
Oh, that's right, you can't get to the White House because they don't want to allow people.
Somebody said once a family that protests together stays together, or something like that.
In a camp.
We're working on that.
Okay, anything else? All right, then we stand adjourned at 7:32.
This is definitely.